Hello, my name is James, and I have high-functioning autism, also referred to as Asperger's syndrome or ASD. And I want to share my experience of how I coped with being at work. Basically, how did I cope with work life, having a job, and how I dealt with it and try to be most successful in my job without making it least of a struggle as possible. Well, one thing I did that really helped with work was I tried to make sure I had enough sleep, and I made sure that sleep wasn't something that would stress me out. Basically, I would learn ways to learn tips on how to help me fall asleep early, such as going to bed earlier in the evening and getting up earlier where to have time before I'd go to work. This allowed less amount of stress. Basically, I did as much as I could in regard to sleeping that would reduce the amount of stress related to like sleep anxiety and wanting to get a good night's rest. And I did that by going to bed earlier. That made me realize that, you know, if I didn't fall asleep immediately, I'd still have like buffer time to still be able to get a good rest of sleep. I also have sleeping pills that helped, as well as I would run a fan at night and wear earplugs. Those things helped. I don't wear earplugs or run a fan all the time. Basically on nights where like I knew I'd really need to sleep, where I was like lacking sleep before, I found that helpful. Or during the night where maybe there's other people over the house, there's a lot of noise. Yeah, and then I drink coffee during the day if I was tired. I found that helped. I found that's a big part, because I found sleep for me was a big part that made working stressful, really, because of that whole desire of hoping to get enough sleep and energy during the day. So those are some tips that helped me there. Another thing I've noticed at work, which was a struggle, was following and understanding directions. I'm first going to describe this struggle, then I'm going to tell you what I did to cope with that, work with it, find solutions to it. I struggle with following directions, paying attention, making inferences, in other words, drawing conclusions on information. A lot of times when people would explain something, even simple stuff, and that happens in general, off job, school, at home, parents telling me something, but at work, where it mattered the most because my job depended on it, and finances, well, I would struggle following directions, and a lot of times I would do the wrong things or get confused, mixed up, or sometimes I wouldn't focus and miss information as a whole. And I had problems with short-term memory, so a lot of times if an employer or boss would say a bunch of things, I would have a hard time processing it all and forget a step. So I'd often miscomplete things. I wouldn't accurately follow through on assignments. I would a lot of times have to go back and make changes, and you know that wasn't good for the job. My boss would get frustrated and fire me, and that actually did happen in several jobs. So I learned that one way to help with that is letting your boss know ahead of time before the job. Let them know about the condition that you struggle with, so he knows ahead of time, so that way, you know, it's not a surprise. It can be difficult telling that to an employer because you might be afraid, is he going to think I'm a good fit? Don't worry about that. It will be much better in the long run, trust me. I've learned that rehearsing and writing down what I say before telling them about my condition is always good, because then you could say it just the right way. You can have other people look over it and agree, yeah, you should tell it to them like that. I found that really helpful. Like, get your parents to like look over what you're about to say, like write it down on a piece of paper and have your parents maybe edit the dialogue. And then you rehearse it and then you tell your employer it, or your boss. Another thing I find helpful is be very organized. I found writing down notes was helpful. With my short-term memory issue with not being able to follow directions very well, I learned that writing things down was good. And I found employers really like the fact that I write things down and take notes, because it shows that you're really serious about the job and that you're serious about getting the information right. A lot of people don't do that, and even for like non-Aspies, it can, you know, like no one's perfect, nobody's going to get information, nobody's going to be able to perfectly present the information, nobody's going to be able to perfectly get the information, so it's always good to write notes. And then you can have your boss look over the notes and see if you have the information correct or not. And you can also do that by, I also found that's a great way to make sure you understand the information, have them look over the notes. Another way too is like when a boss tells you something, you don't have a notepad with you, you could what I do call parroting in your own words, which is like reflecting, paraphrasing what the employer tells you, and you say, I'm going to do such and such and such and such. Is that correct? And then the boss will say, if it isn't correct, the boss can then like correct you, say, no, I also want you to do this, or, you know, sometimes even if you do correct it, the boss will automatically will give you more detailed information about it to clarify it more. They'll be like, yeah, and also just, you know, make sure to do this. Yeah. So that's always a good idea, I found. You know, of course, be on time and dress well, and, you know, be organized. Yeah, I try not to be nervous around people. Socializing is important in the job, but it doesn't have to be like you go on talking about all these conversations about blah blah blah. Just a simply, hey, how you doing? How's your day? Just basically small talk, which is much easier than getting in, you know, detailed stuff. Just simple small talk like, how's the weather? Just say something quick about the job. It's always good to get that persona going, because it will give you good reputation. And another thing which is very important, just show that you're serious about the job. There's nothing more powerful than letting your boss know you're serious, because even if you do screw up and totally make a big boo-boo or get overwhelmed about sensory issues or anything, it will at least know you're serious about the job. And yeah, sensory issues, one other thing, you know, at least let your boss know about that. They can kind of work around that. It's usually not that big of a deal. Well, anyway, I hope this is helpful, and thanks for watching.